Okay, I don't know if anyone is in here yet, so I'll wait a couple more minutes, but then I'll probably get started on Greta's, as always, because hers is pretty chonky and it talks about perspective, which is what we dealt with last month. So might as well do a little quick review before I jump into the other stuff. Okay, let's get started. If the volume is not good, maybe I'll just have to fix it in post, but should be okay. I put the music relatively low for here. But first things first is I'm going to reduce the size of the composition, so meaning I'm going to shrink all the background and the characters a little bit because it's way too close, and so it's giving too much in the center. So I want to kind of offset a little bit. So when you are doing composition, you want to make sure you're trying to balance it out by doing stuff that's like for more on the lower bottom of the half of the composition. You have stuff in the lower left, or so basically the 2/3 rule, right? So I don't know if you've ever learned this before, but if you didn't, we're gonna do it today. It's basically with composition, you don't want to put things smack in the middle. It makes things feel very, very boring unless it's like a very deliberate move, and even then there tends to be like slight alterations to like a middle composition. But in general, you want to think of it through 2/3 rule, meaning you're going to try to keep things in 2/3 of the canvas. So either you have it filled up with stuff for 2/3 of the canvas, either horizontal like this or like this, or you have 2/3 space, so meaning most of your stuff is down here and most of it's empty up here. So those are your two options, and that way it keeps things a little bit more interesting. Of course, it doesn't have to be super, super, super perfectly accurate to the 2/3 rule. Hello, hello. I am not sure why. There we go. Okay, Greta, I didn't see the chat. I was like, what? Am I just in here all alone? I guess I'm gonna be talking to myself this whole time. Okay, so basically we're going to fix this composition by shifting everything so it's not perfectly centered. So I'm just gonna make sure we have maybe them sitting down here slightly off to the left and a little bit more space up on top. That way you can actually show off a little bit more of like the background environments. You could play around with adding some cool signs. So let's extend this canvas real quick. Interesting, so this is multiply. I'm just going to real quick erase a little bit of that multiply, because if this is truly like a vending machine at nighttime, it's going to be like the brightest thing comparatively to like the figure. So when your camera, you get to choose what you want to focus on. So do you want to focus on the characters or do you want to focus on the machine? If you want to focus on like stuff in the background, then the characters are going to be a little bit more blurry, a little bit more more higher contrast, so you're not going to see a lot of their features. Whereas if you choose to focus on the characters, then that means a lot of the stuff in the background we're going to blast with a little bit more light and also do a little bit of blurriness in order to kind of focus our attention away from the character, from the background. So that's why I'm kind of erasing away some of the multiply, so you get back some of that super bright lighting and it feels like it's glowing a little bit more. And then let me just merge this down so I can work with this all together. We'll also fix the perspective a little bit. And because you have decided to give us your favorite color palette, this is a good enough time to give you a little teaser on the color tutorial that we'll be talking about this month, which is probably going to be not as comprehensive as I would like it to be, just because I feel like if I throw too much at you, you're going to get confused. So we're going to take it easy and take it slow. Okay, I'm deciding this is the edge of the building or whatever. And then you can add some different color buildings in the background to kind of break up this chunk of darkness that you have, so it doesn't feel so boring. Typically, I know in like real life, when it's dark at night, you look at the buildings, they all look like they're the same color, but there are slight variations, just like how in the daytime you see every paint of a building is like different. So like maybe one building has like eggshell white, another has I don't know, cocaine white. I can't think of any other name for paint at the moment, but that's the general idea, so I just want to break it up a little bit. I feel like there's a glow somewhere. Let's merge those down. Ah, okay. You don't have to go as crazy as San Francisco with like all the different colored houses. Even if you look at like a regular neighborhood, each house has slightly different colors, so you can just tinge it a little bit. So I'm not even going, you don't have to go purple. I just wanted to kind of bring back the color scheme because you'd have a lot of purple and a lot of blues. No purples over here, so you kind of want to bring some of that color back in there. And I'm going to figure out your perspective first of all, because this perspective does not quite line up with this perspective of the figures. So let's find our vanishing point. Based on your building right here, your vanishing point would be somewhere off to the side here. And so it'd be a lot more dramatic than what you actually have it here. So what I would suggest is that we reduce this, bring the vanishing point a little bit closer, a little bit even farther out, and make this building feel a little bit less tilted. Something like that, just slightly, not too much. Oops. And then we have an opportunity to kind of bring a rooftop or something up over here, just like how they do in like convenience stores. Let's look one up real quick. Shoot. Daiso is not what I'm thinking of. I'm thinking of 7-Eleven kind of convenience store. Let's see. So this one is a slightly reduced. Yeah, so something like this maybe, where there's like a clear rooftop in front of it, like that. Shoot. And when you have like a rooftop, do you see how, hold a sec. Do you see how this part here isn't as dark as you would expect it to? And that's because the light from the inside of the store is reflecting, bouncing out here, along with this kind of really strong light source right here is kind of lighting this whole section up. So we can do the same thing where we have some of this light from here kind of bounce back to that top of the rooftop. And I'm just gonna choose a slightly bigger and go slightly darker. And you can have maybe, I don't know, like this part of the sign kind of lit up. And first things I'm going to ask you is to decide whether you want your shadow color to be more blue or more purple. In this case, since you have like a lot of blue lighting, I would suggest you make your shadows more purple. So if you don't feel like trying to figure out the color theory, you can go ahead and add a multiply layer and add a slightly more warm purple to help you kind of mix the colors a little bit more. This will probably have to go in front of your sign. Where's your sign though? I'm gonna reduce the size of your sign a little bit. This is hard. Okay, just reduce it just a little bit so I can fit it in there, and you can add more signs if you want. You could do like another sign right behind here. You could do some taller advertisement signs or whatever, or you could even do a little bus stop right there. And because we're at this angle, we're gonna see a little bit more of this side. Right? A bus stop I think would be really nice and cute, and it could also give you a little bit more light in this section. Okay, let's show you the perspective a little bit better. So that means this should recede down a little bit more and hide a little bit more of that underside, especially if it's not that high up. Otherwise, if you really want it high up, it would have to basically be showing this much of that underside, and you bring it up a little bit more because we're still trying to line up this edge with the perspective line. But I don't think you want to see too much of that, so let's hide this real quick. Don't worry about the words just yet. Make sure you figure out the perspective and all the placement of your signs before jumping in for like the details and stuff. Other suggestion is you make the sign even thinner, because I don't think most of like these types of neon signs are that thick. You could even consider, I don't know, doing stuff like this, upping the saturation of the sign, some kind of words. Just pretend they're some kind of words or something, and you can do some pictures or whatnot, I don't know. And I'm just bringing back some of that blues that you used here for this lighting. And then for here underneath, we'll bring back some of that lighting. I'm gonna use a hard light layer, and don't go too hardcore with it, and you're just gonna add a little bit of that light back in there. And then let's see if we can add some more types of signs in the back here to help you kind of break up this background a little bit. If you wanted, you could make this convenience store feel more neon city vibe by adding kind of some neon light borders around here. I'm gonna maybe shift this down slightly to a more greenish color. You could play around with like the colors. You can make it pink or like a purple color. So option is you could do something like this and then do different colors. Or some stuff like that. That maybe, I don't know. And then let's make sure we blur out all the stuff in the background. So let's find our line work. Yeehaw, no smoking. Obviously, yes, no smoking over here. If we put like a little bus stop, let me just map that in there. It doesn't, I'm not doing too much detail right now, so like this planning stage right here, you want to make sure you kind of just put into place a general perspective of the object that you're trying to put in, and also like the general lighting. So we can either decide to make your bus stop glow in the dark. So let's see, where's it? Bus stop Japan. So something like this, or you have like an awning, which will probably be darker, so let's choose a purpley color, not too dark. And I go more blue because it's closer to the light over here. And then for this one, I'm going to cut this out and we're going to play around with our layers. And you can try to create kind of like a see-through effect, depending on what you like. So this could work, this could also work. I would just suggest you make it a little bit brighter so you can see the difference. And then you can then add a little bit more of your highlights on top of it. So let's hide that real quick. And you'll get less of the background showing if it's in a brighter area. So like see how the reflection of this right here versus like the background, which is like the shadow. Let's not go too ham with that. The strawberry bus stop. Yeah, then you could bring back some of these colors that you have in your original one. Right here. Oops. I don't know, some kind of bus stop here. You can take like a look at some more references and try to figure out how do you want to design the bus stop. But just the idea that there would be a bus stop with like a little bit of a glass right here that reflects some of this light over here will be very helpful in order to bring back some of the light in this area. Let's meld all this back layer. So it's easier for me to blur out that background a little bit. Stuff is still not in the right place. Okay. That's still in there. Okay, so a lot of merging down needs to happen a little bit. You don't have to go too crazy like this. This would be if you're like super out of focus and you're basically only focusing on the characters. You want a middle ground where you feel like this is still an important part of the story, but it's less important than the figures. What happened to my music? Let's go back to our convenience store, and this is the time when you throw in some of those beams, support beams, and throw in some doors. Because we don't know what the heck is going on without those. And I know this is like pain in the butt, but you kind of do need them because it gives your building a sense of perspective and a sense of direction. So this is also time to add some of those highlights right here. This one, break up the chunk. Feel free to kind of add some more stuff to it. So you could put some words. So you could do one section right here, could be this different color. Just like how you see, breaks up the chunk with some signage. I don't know, some weird stuff in here. You could put some strawberries. Ichigo, how to write Ichigo? Ichigo. Yeah, it's your time to shine. You could play around, make it like a little fun strawberry advertisement or something. Like, yum, look at this lotion, strawberry lotion. For some reason, we're advertising it as like a yogurt or something. Let's see. Then real quick, let's bring some of that lighting from the store into the floor, because right now, so dark, there's nothing going on at all. So I'm just gonna take a kind of medium blue and we're gonna bust it in, play around with hard light or soft light. Probably hard light. And let's make it a little bit brighter, especially near the door. Since the ground is part of the world, why wouldn't it be affected by the lighting, right? Okay, maybe just do a little bit more of that. Reach down. I'm gonna bring a little bit more of that shadow for the bottom part right here and show off a little bit more of that floor. And you could maybe take a page out of their book and you could even add some lights right there. Or not, it's up to you. I'll put it on a separate layer so you can decide if you want it or not. This just means it will give you some more chance to kind of light the characters a little bit better, but if you wanted to keep it backlit, then we can get rid of it. So I'll just keep it there. Let's throw some more signs here and there before we go on to the perspective of the characters, because we do have to fix up a little bit of the sizing. So for this one, I'm gonna say maybe we'll do one that's like a blue lighting type thing. You could do another layer of signage, and this time it's not full sign, it's a transparent neon sign like this or something. Maybe you could have, oh, let's put that there. You could have a little sign right here that has the stuff, like the bus stop of whatever they're going to, whatever. I would just probably push it a little bit more warm so you kind of don't just do the same colors over and over. You want to have a couple of kind of highlight colors. So in your color palette, you're going to typically stick to a few of the similar colors in the same family, and then for like a pop of interest, you add like a key color. So it tends to either be, typically it's usually the complementary color of the general color palette, but you can stray a little bit as long as, so if like your general color palette is mostly cold, you add a warm color, or if it's mostly warm, then you'll add a cool color, etc, etc, that way to break up the monotony a little bit. So a lot of blues and purples and pinks. We want to make it a little bit more interesting, so instead of just doing blue, we'll add like maybe a seafoam green. So it's close to your color palette, but it is sort of not the same. You get me? So you could do something like that. And then let's fix up the perspective of that vending machine. You're going to tuck it in a little bit more. And let's also make the building a little bit farther looking. over here, you can give a little bit more space to the composition by making, say, I don't know, the sky. So this color maybe, I don't know, maybe a little bit more blue. Almost as if it's like this is a neon city, so a lot of lights happening and stuff. Or some shtick like that. I would probably put some more stuff in the back over here. And we can just do that by adding a little bit of a shadow. Some stuff like that, I don't know, something like that. And let's make them a little bit more different, so different colors. Because a convenience store is known for being very colorful. See how so many colors, right? So we're gonna choose some of the colors that we have in our color scheme, and you're gonna play around with it. So maybe I want to do a little bit of this color, a little bit of this color. So you don't get too bored of it very fast. Right, the seafoam green I think is a good compromise because you have so many blues and purples. If we look on the color wheel, I don't use a color wheel, but let me see if I can have a color wheel. I don't use color wheels there. Okay, we're just gonna look up a color wheel. Color circle? Is that what I'm gonna have to look up? Okay, yeah. So you see how blue and purple were mostly in this area for our color palette. So you want to choose a color that is on the opposite side. So you're not just going to choose a red color because that would be too similar and you're just going to get confused. So if you don't want it to be too vibrant, then you're going to aim for something that's a little bit colder since your color palette is cold. So we're going to typically aim for a color that's somewhere here to kind of balance out all this kind of cold colors over here. And I know it's not exactly directly across from it, but like I said, color palettes are a little bit more flexible. So if you had used a lot of these colors right here, a lot of greens, blues, and yellows, maybe you would want to balance out with a little bit of magenta color. So that's how you figure out how to choose colors for a color palette. Okay, I would just probably play around with a little bit more stuff here. You could do, let me think, what are some other things you see in the city? You could do, I don't know, like a little texture instead of working too hard. You don't have to do like a whole thing. You could just grab a texture brush and just do some scratches to the building so it feels more interesting. Break up some of that color right here, or go a little bit highlight. Right, you could do something like that. And let's talk about the characters real quick before we move on to Jesse's piece. So perspective wise, remember what I said, this vanishing point, right? So this character right here is not big enough. you want to make them look extremely... You want to make them look like they're in such an extreme angle. That means we're gonna have to showcase it. Don't forget my tip where you exaggerate the size of some things, especially if they're closer to us, in order to better portray that perspective. So I'm gonna make him bigger, and I'm also gonna scoot him up a little bit. If you want, let me make him a different layer so we can play around with the different types of perspective you can push. So you can make it look like he is coming up to meet Toji like this. So he's gonna be really right up in front. This month's challenge. Oof. This month's challenge is a simpler version of how perspective is, because we're not even talking about like world view perspective, we're only talking about figure perspective. But essentially, you can decide to kind of break the rules a little bit based on what you're trying to convey. So like I said, bring back my music first. If you are trying to, you could make it so you want to lead the viewer's eyes into the picture a little bit more. Then we can tell the story, maybe this figure right here is coming up to meet Toji, and so he would be a lot bigger. Other option is if you want to keep it so he's seeing eye to eye, we just make it a little bit bigger and keep that kind of same angle of perspective that this building has, so they're in line with each other, and so they're in line with that perspective line. And so it just depends on you. For me, I feel like it'd be more of an interesting story to tell if you have this guy kind of coming in a little bit like this. You don't have to exaggerate as much as me. You could just do like a middle ground. So this guy's coming up right here, and then we blur him out just a tad bit. I'll do that after we fix. But maybe the first might be good. Yeah, so it just depends on what kind of story you want to tell. If he is coming up to meet Toji, then we're just gonna have to fix Toji where he's looking at. It wouldn't make sense for Toji to be looking this way where the guy's like this way, right? So let us shift his face over a little bit. So you're gonna hate me. We're gonna redraw the face. Okay, I'm gonna choose a color that is not even comparable to our color palette. That way we don't get confused when I'm doing this. And so we're gonna see he's got to look at the guy this way. So his center of his face has to be this way. So I'm gonna adjust the jaw to match that perspective a little bit, so we see less of this jaw sticking out. Still gonna keep that sharp ass jawline. Only difference is he's gonna have the middle of his chin line up with the middle of that face. Okay, and then let's draw the eyes real quick. His thin ass eyebrows. I already forgot how he looked like. Let's see. What was he doing? He's smoking a cigarette. Okay. Oh yeah, he needs to go get his eyebrows tattooed or something so he doesn't have to draw it every day. Oops. I'm also making sure we line up the eyes a little bit, so maybe I'll Push them a little higher. I know, right? You would think you want to give him nicely structured eyebrows like this. But he don't got them eyebrows. He's like, I'm a villain. I don't got eyebrows. I'm gonna need to look a picture of Toji because I honestly don't remember how he looks like. I love how I look up Toji and hits him immediately. Okay, where is he? Toji. Okay, good close-up of him. He's also got small-ass pupils too. He's eventually gonna be locked into my memory, you're correct. He's got the smallest eyes, pupils. Okay. The original style, bro. Gotta give him the sharpest cat eyes ever. Ugh. And angular eyes, because he's a fucking villain, bro. Ito-sanos. Let's see. Yeah. I think they do have very vibey in the terms of that they very angular eyes, that same double eyelid. That only different is this guy, he has a shorter face, bigger eyes, much more expressive. This guy, Toji, is like a little bit more of a psycho, so we can show off a little bit of the fangs here. And let's not forget his heckin' old man eye bags. The old man eye bags are really his distinct feature. Okay, where the hell is Toji? His scar is on left or right? This one. Make him look creepier by doing smaller pupils. It makes him look like he has a smile line. He's perpetually smiling on one side. He's like, ah, that's so funny. That's kind of true though. So that's why if you're drawing it yourself, maybe you can just shift the scar a little bit over. Let's see. Yeah, or you could make it just like a little bit bigger so it doesn't feel like a smile line and instead looks more like more like an actual scar. Yeah, you just move it where you need it to, boo. Okay, let's do his hair real quick because he looks hella weird without his hair. Okay, hide that bitch. Just gonna give him just a little bit more volume. I'm just fixing the perspective a little bit. His face should wrap up a little bit. Shoop. Maybe did it too high. The Widow's Peak was not doing him justice. He looked hella busted, bro. I will say one thing about I already forgot about Toji is that his face often fluctuates between like super mature looking and then also like very kiddish looking because the art style is just, they can't decide. So I also can't decide if we should keep it as I don't know. It's up to you, Greta. If you want to make him more daddy looking, you can make his face longer. If you want to make him more in par with like this style, then you make the face shorter. And you make the face shorter, you bring the eyes down a little bit too and make it a little bit bigger. That way it feels more kiddish. And to be fair, a lot of manga artists do this, and they attribute it to style, but I don't know if it's really style or if it's just they're working too hard trying to get all these chapters out within like the month, so they kind of just slack on the anatomy. Because I'm pretty sure they could do like crazy art when if they had like sufficient time. There's a reason why they're like known as masters, right? But given that like they have to publish these on a monthly basis, I think, because they're magazine publisher or whatever, I can't imagine having to draw the same character in such complex moves and complex environments within the month. Yes, I feel so bad for them. So let's make the ear bigger, because Greta, eyes, ears, they line up. Yeah. I don't know, I have a crazy amount of respect for these manga artists. And those who actually manage to draw such detailed stuff, like with Gokurakai, that one, oof, they are on some kind of, they had to be on cocaine or something, right? Okay, we fixed up the hair. We're gonna shift over the Adam's apple to the middle, because we are now in the middle. Okay, just making sure we wrap the shirt around the body properly. So I know that we have a tendency to try to follow the muscles, but once it's here, you still have to maintain like this is like a general oval shape. Ooh, 26. Yeah, he's not that much older than us. Oh, well, at least not that much older than me. I would not want to live such a hectic lifestyle at such a young age. Like even for the old masters, I feel so bad for them. Let me fix the direction of the eyes. I just realized not looking in the right way. I also don't want him cross-eyed. God damn, it's a thin line. Okay, he's somewhat in the right direction. I don't know, man. Let's fix up some of the proportions, because when you zoom out, you're gonna see a lot of issues happen. So I'm gonna realize that his head was like way too far out compared to the neck. And we're also going to shrink his face down a little bit to match the size of his body. Okay. And at this angle, you're gonna want to remember this stuff that's closer to us is going to show more and it's gonna be bigger. So this shoulder gets tucked in a little bit. This side is going to get full access, full view. So if you can imagine a kind of a box, the angle of the shoulders, so your body should be here. You see how this side is going to show more, so if we place like an arm here, that means we should see more of this arm compared to this arm, which is hidden behind here. correct? And so let me take away that figure so we can fix up the hand and the wrist here. The lumpiness is not helping, Greta. Okay. Maintain this continuous kind of thin to thick kind of pattern for the arm. Even if you turn the arm in any different angle, we still have that same thin to thick. So as I move my arm around from different angles, you'll see still thin to thick, right? So don't think about the wrist just yet. Don't think about if there's a bone right there. We have to remember from the arm right here, we have the thick part, so like the juicy drumstick of the arm, and then it's going to taper off into the wrist. And we're going to generalize the hand as a kind of square shape right now. You can do a big blob first, and notice your hand is bigger than your wrist, correct? So even if you were a big chonkin athlete or a bodybuilder, the hand is bigger than the wrist. Now I can't say the same for the forearm. Maybe the forearm can get so bulked up to the point it's bigger than the hand, but this wrist, there's literally potentially no muscle in here that could get so bulked up to the point that it's like fatter than the hand. So when you are drawing the hand connecting to the wrist, you always want to make sure that this area right here is wider than this area right here. So I'm just going to maintain that for you right here. And I feel like with Toji comes, this is something that comes with character design. Toji is not the type to smoke a cigarette by holding it the proper way. I definitely think if he is going to smoke, if he's really going to smoke as a bad guy, he is just going to say, fuck it, this is what we're doing today. 2 fingers, these 2 fingers, okay? So we can keep this thumb somewhat relaxed. Oops. And we're going to bust these 2 fingers out. Right? Don't you think he would smoke something like that? And when you are so relaxed like that, your wrist is definitely going to... Actually, let's do it this way. When you are relaxed in real life, doing poses, especially with this kind of pose, you're typically not going to hold your cigarette really close to your body. You're going to give it a little space so you can let like the smoke float away. You're gonna be super relaxed. You're gonna give yourself not have to flex your biceps so hard. So when you don't want to flex your biceps that hard, obviously you're gonna have to extend your arm a little bit. So if he is going to smoke, he can have his arm right here if he wants, but he's going to rest his arm on his rib right here, right? So you don't have to do any work, and then he's gonna relax his hand. So that is how we create poses and how you think about it. So I'm going to make sure we capture that sense of relaxedness, chalantness. I'm gonna cut this out a little bit so we can somehow get his arm to rest against his chest a little bit more. I'm just gonna push it a little bit, and then we're also going to switch up the direction of his body, because again, we turned his whole head over, right? So we want to make his body start turning with that head a little bit. I'm gonna exaggerate that spicy, I don't know what this is called, the lats right here. This part to make the man look, or like the figure look hella chonky or like hella buff. You want to exaggerate it, make it a lot more stuck out compared to the waist, like this. in order to get that nice ass side profile. And we're gonna start making the pants a little bit more lumpy because this is a type of drawstring pants, so it's definitely a lot lumpier than say if we had work slacks or whatever. So we're gonna get a lot of wrinkles here and there. Basically, you gotta give him the waist of a lifetime, the waist that you get once you remove 2 ribs. And then here's what I'm gonna do to give him a little bit even more character, more personality, is we're gonna make him slouch a little bit. So let's see if I can somehow finagle that. So if you want to make him slouch, we push the hip forward, because when you're slouching, you're not caring about standing straight, you're not making sure your spine lines up with your hip. You're actually going to lean back a little bit, right? So that means the hip is going to go back a little bit, and we're going to tilt a little bit. And then you also want to make sure, in order to compensate for that tilted, like that lean back, your head points forward a little bit. And in that case, because we kind of lean forward a little bit with the neck kind of has to shrink a little bit to accommodate that kind of retraction, if you know what I mean. Okay, so let's just fill in the rest of this gap right here. Yeah, so basically what I'm just basically doing is we're trying to improve on the pose so that Toji looks a little bit natural standing here. He was very stiff before, and he doesn't look like he would naturally do that kind of pose. He's a very flexible, bendy character, so he's going to use his flexibility to his full advantage. And he's also not a very goody two-shoe kind of character, so he would not be the type to stand up super straight. Yeah, he would be super relaxed, super like, I don't give a fuck about stuff. You deal with it. I do whatever I want, that kind of thing. So his pose has to reflect that in order for the character to feel like it's actually him. Okay, so if he's holding it, you're gonna see you'll see more of this part of the fingers, so let's do that. And so you can kind of figure out the hand just by doing squiggles right now. So you can kind of feel, is this shape feeling good? Is this anatomy looking right? Without having to worry about the details just yet. And I'm feeling he's still not very relaxed with his hand, so maybe I'll do even more of a tilt like this. Shoop, shoop, shoop. My music's done. Okay. So if he's holding a cigarette like this, you see some of this inside palm, this side. Okay. So yeah, even I need references. Hands are hard. Okay, that's the general idea of the hand. Let's clean up the stuff now. Yeah, so that's why you kind of want to try to draw the squiggles of it first. Don't worry about like drawing every single detail just yet. Because if you do the details now and it's the wrong angle or whatever, then what's the point of doing that all of it, right? Okay, so now we're gonna do a little bit of detail, make the hand look like a muscular hand. So for male hands, we're gonna make the fingers more muscular, so there's a little bit of curvature. Exaggerate the knuckles. Make the fingers more square-faced. Don't taper them or else it's gonna feel very feminine. Okay, let's draw your cigarette now. Yes, we do not do AI fingers. Yes, Greta. We will strive to become the best artist that we can. And yeah, because this cigarette is his, he definitely does not smoke it like a good boy. He just wrinkles it, chews on it, beats it up, pulls it out from like the back pocket, and it's already wrinkled. So that kind of cigarette. And instead of choosing orange for the light of the fire, we're going to choose something close within our color palette. So our color palette, it's purples, blues, that kind of stuff, right? So that means instead of orange, the closest color we got is like this pinkish color. So we're going to choose pink, and it's going to end up looking orange because it is in like reference in context of all your other colors. So see how this white or this pink look kind of yellowy? I'm trying to capture that really nice silhouette. So you want to have this kind of zigzag feel for the arm. And that's how you kind of convey that the arm is relaxed. Alright, there we go. So let's fix up the position of the chest. We're gonna have it right here because you have the collarbone right here, right? So why wouldn't the middle of the pecs follow that, correct? Alright, let's finish up this empty stuff. Oops. I'm gonna make him look more like he's half asleep because he's perpetually sleepy-eyed, apparently, in his vibe. So that means we're just gonna drop down the size of, increase the size of the eyelids, reduce the amount of pupils that we can see. In real life, if someone actually did this, they would look like this and you can't actually see anything, but in anime we can do that. Okay, maybe something like that. Anime, power of anime indeed. Okay, let's go back to this character real quick. We're gonna fix up his proportions too because he is very awkward right now. So his perspective, he is standing, say, directly in front of the viewer when we want to give him a slight tilt. So we actually want to make it look like he's slightly turned to the side a little bit to match him approaching Toji. So if you can think about it, his head is right here. You want to show a little bit more of this side. So you'll see more of this hand versus this hand. What you're doing right now is you have a smack in the middle, so he's facing us directly. You're not seeing any of the sides, all perfectly even, but that makes for very boring stuff, so we don't want to do that. So what we're going to do right here, we're going to shift this middle over to the left, so that means we see some of the front. Let's give him a caked out buns, okay? No thin, no skipping leg day here. And that also means we'll get to see a little bit of his elbow bending here. And depending on how wrinkly you want to make the suit, if you want it a nice tailored suit, it's not going to be very wrinkly. What you did before is for a very wrinkly suit, so those are the suits that are very thin material, not tailored at all, makes for a very casual vibe for the salaryman. Versus if you want him to look a little bit more sleek, a little more cool, then you definitely have to make sure that suit is nice and slick, very tailored, basically no loose ends anywhere, and very heavy thick material, so the fabric is not going to have too much wrinkling happening. So I know you showed me some references in the Discord, so let me just pull those up real quick and let's see. So take a look at this type of material. This is a very thin suit. It's the type that you get on your first interview at a job because you don't have money, versus say a nice tailored suit would be a slightly thicker material. You're not going to have as much wrinkling happening. So like George Armani, stupid Italian names, Armani suit. If you take a look at these types of suits, very tailored, minimal wrinkle. Like, look at this guy, super tailored suit, right? Minimal wrinkle. The only wrinkle that you're gonna see is where the points of tension, so like where the buttoning happens, where the leg is kind of moving, and a little bit if his suit is a little bit too small, you're gonna get a little bit of wrinkling there. Otherwise, very nice suits. I think I saved some suit references in my own Pinterest, so let's see if we can get an idea a little bit more. This art style is so nice for the clothes. Okay, so see here. Only points of tension, right? Very minimal wrinkles anywhere that isn't stretched out. This is AI, but the suit is what we're looking at. So right here, wrinkle here because it's bending, minimal wrinkle here. So you maybe get a little bit of wrinkle over here where the back is bending a little bit. There's a lot of different types of suits that can do. You could do round lip, you could do one that has a flap like this. You could make it less tight, you could make it more of a flat shape like this. That's also an option, but if you really want to make it super like fit tailored, then you would definitely show off a little bit more of the hip. Right here you get a little bit of wrinkle, some wrinkle right here, but they're not too tight, they're kind of bigger wrinkles. And some things that you will need to pay attention to the suit. This lapel right here will overlap on top of the whole suit. So right here you're going to create this kind of bump upwards a little bit. Same for the shoulders right here. You tend to have this kind of crease right there. So there's a little bump right there. And then I don't know what the heck he's doing, but maybe he has a lighter. So it makes sense why the heck he's even walking towards Toji. So just blobs right here. Notice how I'm not drawing actual hands. I don't know, this is maybe the lighter. I can't tell. And in that case, this cigarette is not lit up then. No more smoke. I know you were waiting to not do it, Greta. Because the smoke is also not quite in the optimal spot. If you wanted to do smoke, I'll tell you how you can do it. Shoop, shoop, shoop. Yeah, smoke is a little bit hard to capture. It takes a little bit to kind of experiment and figure out what worked for you. Even now I don't have like a perfect regimen for like creating smoke, but there are some rules that you do want to keep in mind when you're creating smoke, so it looks much nicer than if you just drew like a single stream of smoke. And to be fair, that tutorial was mostly about clouds, and I just threw in smoke in there because I thought it would break up the monotony of just talking about clouds. know, some kind of weird cigarette smoke thingy. And then we'll do with the lighting in a second. So for the head, for the hair, we're gonna match that same angle a little bit. And to make him feel like his head is not just cut off by this and his barber isn't insane, we're just gonna do a little bit of stray hair on this bottom. And you can make his hair a little bit more square to give it a more personality, more anime type. So like, have you seen like the hairs? They're not perfectly all gonna be round like the head in like in real life. Maybe some of them can be a little bit more exaggerated. And then tuck back that chin a little bit. Okay, so something like that. And then for a suit like this, you can see there's still slight highlights, just very subtle. So we don't want to go too crazy with going too high in contrast. So you can just do a little bit of lighting here and there. And a suit material is slightly shiny, so you can do just a little bit of a highlight. Very, very slow contrast still. You can barely see the color. And you focus all your attention on the highlight, like the parts that are the highest points. Okay, maybe a suit might look something like this. So let me finish off with just some general lighting things that you can do to make it really pop out. Also, you can choose to make this guy blurred or not, up to you. Where is our glow now? Okay, so here's your glow for your background. Let's do a little bit of glow for the kombini. I know with color dodge, gotta go darker color a little bit. And as a result, this is going to get a little bit of light. Yeah, if you want Toji to be in full focus, then you can just add a little bit of blur, or you don't have to go like crazy like this. This is if only time you would go this blurry is if you're trying to make the character look like he's moving super duper fast. Otherwise, you can just do a little bit of a blur somewhere there. That should be fine. Let's finish up all the general lighting. So I'm making sure this front entrance of the convenience store is like the brightest source. If you have like a neon sign like this, I would say like inside is going to be like almost white basically. And then let's bring some of that light into our other characters. So blue light over here. I'm just gonna clip it to those layers so I don't accidentally go outside. Start with this blue tint first. I'm not gonna worry too much about being precise. Then I'm gonna come back in. I want to fix up some of that lighting a little bit. His nose is going to cast a shadow on his face. for right here, so let's erase away some of that light. You can make it so you have a little bit of light on this side that catches a little bit of this side. The way you can kind of contrast the shoulder against the background. And you can take this opportunity to carve out some muscles a little bit. You can make this a little less dramatic if you don't want it super duper bright. You could do something like there. 2 moments where you freeze. Well, this is the final result of what we've been doing. Hopefully it didn't cut off too much. And then I just like to do a little bit of bloom usually. So it kind of makes the character look like he is in such bright lighting. Just a little bit. Yes, a lot of things to do, but I think if once you do this, it will turn out very, very nice and very fun for you. Because lighting, this part where you get to play with lighting, I think is like your favorite part, for sure. Okay, and then I just want to finish one last thing, is break up this chunk of light up here because it's too dang boring. Okay, so that would be all the things I would do. You could, if you still really want to do the smoke, we're gonna just basically layer a whole bunch of stuff. You had like the smoke shape itself. Oh no, not the smoke shape. Like, so basically the idea of like the smoke, it was fine, but it was just the direction that was flowing. It just really didn't add to the composition of the picture. So if I'm going to have smoke, I would probably have so you can see it a little bit. I would probably have it flow somewhere this way or flow somewhere this way into the image a little bit, so you get a little bit more curved lines flowing everywhere, and it can help bring the viewer's eyes a little bit more to the center. So that would be up to you. This one. So for smoke, I typically just like to play around with layering different amounts of light. So some can be a lot bit thinner, some can be skinnier. But if you do this, you're gonna end up covering this guy, so be careful not to do too much. Okay, so you might want to do this one. You could even have it like flow to the back or something, etc, etc. So we're gonna call it here. Before, after, feel like the color palettes are a lot more harmonious. Everything doesn't feel very gray, because I know that a beginner mistake often is to make things a lot more gray than they should be, but light and color affects everything. So even if it looks gray, it's actually like a variation of the original variation of the light, so a desaturated version of the light. So give it a little bit more space. We have a little bit more storytelling, a little bit more light, a little bit more action, right? Okay, so let's move on to Jessie, and we'll do Misu for the very last. So Jessie is this one, which is the perspective challenge, and I praise you for trying to do Bobos, big ol' honking chonkers, in this perspective, because I don't think I talked about it too much in detail, because boobs are a whole different matter of itself. People can do a whole ass book about how to draw boobs or pectorals. So let's get started. I'm going to draw a perspective grid and see what we're working with. So ideally, of course, Greta, I will upload this to the Discord on a drive, and you can dissect it as much as you can later. I'll save this for later. Okay. And so if you can imagine it, this is that box that we are creating. So rectangle. Everything gets bigger farther down, skinnier as it goes up, correct? So we're going to make sure we capture that feeling. Based on the box that we had, the head needs to be a little bit smaller and a little bit more tucked in. Oops, so strong. This liquify is so strong. Top of the head needs to get smaller. Okay, so see how it matches a little bit better. I'm also going to get rid of this gray color because I know it's a study, so gray is easier to think about, but if you're going to add color to there, we're going to cancel. We're also going to add color to the background, so I'm not just looking at a big blob of gray everywhere. Other option is we're just going to lighten everything up, or you could do it darker. I feel like we should lighten things up so you can see the hair very nicely. You have this blue, so why not use that blue for the background a little bit? And you can use the slider like this to kind of play around with color options that you got to see what you want to use. I'm gonna think maybe this kind of baby blue would be a great color. Other option is you keep it that gray color, but it's up to you. I just feel like the blue makes things feel a little bit more alive. And then we're going to make sure she is sitting on the thing. So again, let's bust out our perspective, right? Make sure everything follows that perspective. And why is she not sitting, right? So why is she floating on the little seat? So we're gonna make it bring up a little bit, and at this angle, remember, you're going to kind of cover a little bit of that under thigh, because when you're sitting on the seat, your thigh is on the seat, right? So let's make sure we're actually sitting. I'm not going to worry about the color just now. I just want to make sure you have the angle and the seat there. And if her hand is there, I'm gonna have to extend the seat size a little bit in order to fit her hand. And there you get rid of the problem of the hand. Because if you're sitting with your hand rested on the seat, think about it, it's on the seat, right? And if your seat is you're going to be such a low angle that you're going to see more of the seat, the hand is basically going to get covered up unless it's very much on the edge, or if you're holding the seat like this. I'll go a little bit more purpley so it matches the color scheme better. I do think you got the angle of the shoe very well. Not bad. Heel though is in the wrong spot. So what you're telling me with this is that your heel is curving backwards and she has no way to ever walk properly. So if her foot is here, cylinder, okay, here's your cylinder. Triangle for the heel of the foot, right? This is the bottom of her foot, right? Supposedly. Then that heel should follow the same angle as this part of the foot, right? So there's no reason it should be pointing out this way. It should be going back towards the rest of your foot. And it's going to overlap a little bit like that. Same for going overlapping of the foot right here. Overlap by this front part of the foot. Okay, so you'll overlap. Do you see how now it feels like she could actually stand on this heel? You can make it a little bit skinnier. But you don't want to go too far or else the heel looks like it's too long for the shoe. Okay, let's fix the size of this foot too, because it's still in that same space, correct? So it still should get bigger as it comes down. Same goes for the line. The calves are going to be fatter than your lower part of the leg, because again we have that fat to skinny transition, the drumstick, for both the arms, the wrist, and the legs. So don't let this angle confuse you on losing that fundamental rule of the anatomy. Music is over again. Let's find something else to listen to. Alright, let's fix up this pointy ass knee because we don't want to kill anyone with it. And also the angle. So for angles, I don't know if you used a reference or not, Jesse, but shoulder right here, shoulder right here, and basically your torso is this shape right here, right? So everything should line up on that shape. Now for the body, for the hip, don't go too crazy with shrinking her waist. She's still human, she's still got ribs, got organs, so she gotta have a place to put them, okay? So make sure we shrink that in a little bit, shrink that down, push that down a little bit, because she's sitting on this actual seat. She's not just floating. So her butt is firmly planted on that seat. So her hip should descend all the way down to that seat that we drew for her. And then we have our cylinders, one cylinder right here, one cylinder right here. And what do we know? We have our knee typically poking out past the crook of our little calves usually. So we're going to push out that leg a little bit. Let me show you real quick. Okay, right here. See that? Bye bye, Greta. Hopefully you will just watch the rest of the stream another time and you can see me roast Misu on his on his own terms. Okay, so the knees right here. And we're gonna try to create a sense of direction for the leg. Instead of just doing something straight like this, we're gonna add just a little curve to make it feel like it's opposite this leg. So one leg goes this way, one leg goes the opposite way. So for this case, we're gonna draw the leg more fat on this side, and then have the foot counterbalance it again, just like how you see here, an imaginary S shape, and that creates more fluid poses. Okay, so with this in mind, let's talk about the boobs for a second. If our shoulder is right here, your arm, either if you're gonna have it this close, this arm can't be this far, or we can bring it out a little bit more this way. That way it can actually rest on that sword. eye, everything still that tapered look. So everything got tapered in a little bit more here. So let me do liquify a little bit to fix up the face, and then we'll do some manual painting to do the hips and everything. Oops. So right now what you're drawing this perspective is if she's flat there, when in reality she needs to taper inwards because she's at an angle and she's going, her head is getting smaller and smaller, higher and higher up. See that? And I'm gonna try to separate the background so I can work a little bit easier with the character and not have to worry about destroying everything. If you want to do that cherry nose effect, don't do it so obviously. Make it a little bit wider too. Her nose has a substance. And if you're seeing this grid, it's because the quality of this image is too low. So when I zoom in, it really won't let me. Same for the eyes, Jessie. The eyes are gonna wrap around the head, so don't try to make it a specific shape before you get the anatomy correct. And I also think it's not lined up properly. Look, why are the inner corners not lined up? Line it up. I'm gonna make sure her eyes are round. Everything should still line up. So that's what we're doing basically right now. We're just trying to line everything up, fix up the proportions and everything. I'm gonna get rid of the collarbone for now because I'm gonna talk about that anatomy with the boobs in a second. And already you can see the face looks a lot more proportional, more according to the anatomy. Do you see how flat everything is? Now everything tapers towards that perspective. I still haven't even done her eyebrows. Give her eyebrow justice. Again, wraps around her face. I'm not gonna go too thick because apparently you like thin eyebrows. I'm not judging, but it is what it is. And we're just gonna bring back in her eye socket. So even with everything that's going on, we still have anatomy. Her edge of her jaw should line up with the edge of her neck, even if we're going for anime style. So this part should taper into that neck and shouldn't just jut out suddenly. And we're gonna scoot everything up just a little bit. in order for her to feel like she's part of that angle. See how it's now feeling like it's an angle? And we want to make her look sexy mama. So tuck that chin in, don't make it too wide, and bring up her ears a little bit so it lines up with that curve that we got. I know she got more personality there, so let's just bring back her arched eyebrow a little bit. And we're gonna make her frown, really frown, so I bring down her lip a little bit. And for this kind of bounce light, the underneath of the chin gets a little bit. I won't make her chin line that strong, so you can kind of have the viewers imagine her jaw shape. And you'd make less of a mistake. Okay, so we fixed up the face a lot. Now let's talk about the body. So for the boobs, if you can imagine it, if our torso is in this curved manner, the boobs are gonna sit like balloons on top of that chest. So I'm gonna use a different color and we're gonna try to imagine the boobs. So center of the body is right here, so the boobs are gonna sit right here, like little teardrops on the chest. And we're gonna make sure it lines up with the angle of the shoulder, lines up with the angle of that rib. And now comes the hard part, is to try to figure out how round, how juicy to make it. So the 3D shape of the boobs, we can attribute it, hold a sec. We can think of it in two parts. So the top half of the boob, which is gonna start at the nipple, and then the bottom half of the boob. So you see these two sections of the boobs right here, and this is how you're gonna learn to shade it. And this is how you're gonna learn to portray angle. So normal side, normal straight on boobs, they sit relatively perfect teardrop shapes. At an angle, we either get to see more of the bottom of the boob or we get to see more of the top of the boob. And you're gonna make the round, the part that's showing more, rounder than the other side. So if we were to say we saw the top part of the boob instead, like say this part, your teardrop shapes right here, you'd get it right there, right? So you still have that nice tilt. The top of the boob tends to be a little bit flatter because there's less fat tissue, and gravity drags it down, so hence why you get that nice shape like this. Versus the bottom of the boobs right here. Now if it's really, really smaller boobs, you'll see less of that top part. Maybe you'll get a little bit more of a draggy look like this. That's another type of boob shape you could have, but for this case we have the classic anime hot titties. So I'm gonna help you fix up the shape of the breasts so they line up. So immediately you see we're not in the right area. And based on all these curves, all your clothes are gonna match that same curvature. Otherwise, the nipple's gonna basically pop out right here. Also, you need to decide how low is your clothing gonna go. If it's gonna go all the way down here, then this needs to go down. But I'm gonna say we reach a middle ground, and we're gonna go right here. Okay, so we're gonna fix this up right here. And I'll tell you how to do shadow on the boobs real quick, but we're gonna fix up the angle of the clothing first. And again, remember I separated the top and the bottom half of the breast. So when you draw your clothes, you want to make sure you follow that shape. And especially if you're leaning on your arms, basically your arm is stuck to your rib, so this part, there's not that much gap. And already, do you see how the boobs feel more realistic? Now let's really quickly talk about the collarbone. So it's gonna follow from the shoulder and it's gonna dip in here a little bit to create a little pocket before it comes back out to the other side. And in the case where there's a lot of light, you're typically not really gonna see too much of that collarbone shape. And in this case, where the hair is kind of flowing down this way, down the boob, make sure you're still following the shape of the breast, and then it flows down under the hand. I'm just defining her face a little bit more so the hair would cast a little bit more of a shadow. So I'm just going to cast this really harsh cheekbone shadow, so she gets that crispy facial, almost like she got that buccal chin fat removal surgery, but she didn't. She just naturally has cheeks like this. Careful not to go too ham-handed on this. Woohoo! You just got out of bed. Perfect. You're just watching me critique Jesse's art. And I'm trying to give his character a little bit of buckle fat surgery. Okay. So she got that snatched face now. Let's finish up for the nose. And then we'll talk about the breasts and the shading before we finish off just a little bit more. Bobas. Yes, I think this can be applicable to everyone. Boob help. So let's fix up the arm, because the arm is in total wrong spot. It's so awkward in this spot. It's like it's just detached. So look, the shoulder's right here. So the arm should be behind that shoulder, correct? See? Connected. Now we're just gonna fix the angle of the arm to make it look like she's holding the sword naturally. Voila. Does she not look more natural now? Okay, so we're just gonna fix up a little bit of the connection issue right here. And the reason why I do this is because when you're holding a sword, typically you don't hold it like this super close, especially if she's so relaxed like this. She might be holding it farther out so we can have that nice sword tilt. Let me cut this out. We're going to tilt the sword a little bit more so she's actually looks like she's leaning on it a little bit. And again, with this angle, everything down here is big honkin' huge versus everything up there. And for sword hilts, we cannot neglect. Repeat after me, we cannot neglect. So if you're doing like a square sword hilt, this part follows our angle. Where's it? Our angle. Okay. You're gonna see more of that bottom side. If it's more of an oval shape, then it's going to, you know, this way. You'll see more of that bottom shape, a very big oval. Depends on you, up to you, but you need the angle of the hilt in order to communicate the angle of the sword. And let's finish off by fixing up the rest of the body. Oops, I don't think I can fix it like that. You just need a little bit more shadow in this area so the leg looks like it's overlapping on top of the other part. Okay, Josie? I'll probably go a little bit past 6 today because I ran a little bit late with Greta. Boob tech? Yes, yes, yes. We're learning about technicalities of boob bobos. So how do we shade boobs, right? So let me bring back the shape of the boob. Here, they're balloon shapes, right? So from this angle, you're gonna see more of the under boob. So that means when we're shading it, yeah, we're gonna make sure we capture that sense of shadow that's underneath. And voila, we got ourselves some boob shapes, right? So you can do that for your own pictures if you're really struggling on capturing the correct angle or the correct shading patterns for the breast. You can just draw the breast in and then divide it into the top section and the bottom section. Once you do that, you can kind of just color by numbers. And also, why is this not lined up, Jesse? You make me sad if you got everything else, but then you start neglecting the clothes because you're like, oh, I'm halfway there. And to make things feel really realistic, you want to add a little bit of chunk to your characters. So instead of just doing pure everything's fit perfectly, maybe her bottom piece is a little bit too tight, so she has a little bit of fat spilling over a little bit. That way she feels more juicy-licious. Yes, I think he's definitely got a lot better compared to when he first began. He had so much trouble just even getting to basic figures. I think it was a good idea of him to try to simplify a lot of the stuff he was doing instead of trying to do full on realistic. Maybe he does something a little bit in between. And his choice of colors has gotten a lot better too. Now, how do we shade this mess right here? Okay, so first of all, where's the boob shape? Here, correct? Right here, what you can do, you could just do a little bit of shadow on the bottom. Same for right here, because our light source is kind of from the top up. And then everywhere else, we're gonna have a little bit of more light. We're gonna scoop this down a little bit more. I think Greta does recognize Jesse has improved, Misu. I think everyone can see like he's making huge leaps since we've started. The dedication, more consistent dedication to practicing the skills that he's learning, I think is really showing in the stuff that he's producing for these critiques, or even just for like the shits and giggles. Okay, right here we're gonna try to communicate this kind of tapered look of the boob up top. If you were planning to do like a bell right here, we're gonna make it slightly bigger so it looks cuter. And then you can just finish off with like a little bit of highlight, really soft. Am I tripping? If you make it too shiny, it makes the boob look super wet and like it's plastic or whatever. So don't do too crazy hard, okay? And we're just gonna deepen up the shadow where the breasts are kind of cupped into her suit, so it feels like it's actually on her body and not just, you know, like a secondary afterthought. Same for this side. And then once we're done, we'll just go on to yours, Miss Misu, okay? Alright, so not all the lighting stuff I would do, but before, after, we see a lot more of the perspective being kept. Before, everything is very flat in the face. You did not think about how this top part of the head gets smaller as we go farther back. And now we fix up the perspective. Your boobs were not too bad. You just needed a little bit of help with figuring out the lighting and a little bit of taper of the top part of the breast, which is slightly difficult to figure out. I get it. It takes a lot more time of studying breasts in order to totally capture on the first try. So that's it for this one. And then let's go to Misu's, finish it off with some power anime. Woohoo! So again, black and white. I think it's a good move for your part. It's giving you a little bit more time to do some details which you like without having to worry too much about color, which you don't like. Not me calling you out. No worries, Bisu. Good thing this month's tutorial is on color, which I will start recording soon, and so you'll have a better idea of how to choose color palettes. So first things first, we're gonna capture this whole angled, whole action line. And if you notice, I helped you label everything, so you're welcome. The action line, we have one singular action line going straight through her. Choose a better color. This one, going straight through her. So we need to capture this curve right here, and then that balances out with her legs pointing forward, her arms pointing forward. So with power, we see that, but we want to exaggerate a little bit by using this part of the body to exaggerate it. So instead of having it super duper accurate, Misu, you're gonna see this part that sticks out is actually her pants. So we're going to tuck her belly in and just bring her pants out to create that perspective. And that way you get a little bit slightly more of that nice curve. And it's super subtle, but it makes all the difference. Because now you get a nice continuous line of her ribs and her belly all the way to the back. And her pants actually shows a little bit more on this side, but if you want, you don't have to show as much. You could do like a medium ground right here, so you get that nice diagonal that counterbalances everything out. So as always, nice round shapes. Her pants, her leg is a round shape, so her pants gotta be round too. You want to give the pants some depth or like some thickness, so you make sure you leave a little gap between the shadow and the edge of the pants. Now if you really want to make it look like the exaggerated angle of power right here, I would even suggest you bring the butt even higher up right here. That means we're going to tuck even more of the body up here. So instead of following this exactly, the reference picture that you have, you can bring it up a little bit more. To say here. And now the crotch is basically tucked inside. You don't see any of that stuck. But you get a little bit more of a very dramatic, exaggerated curve going on. Obviously you're not gonna see her butt, but you're gonna see you're gonna see like the little indentation that happens from the spine and the tailbone right here. And if you really want to make it feel like her pants are too big for her, you can have it like that. Where is it? Right here. And that way you'll see some of the pocket too. And your thigh only has oh so much competition. When it's bent like this, it's going to compete with your calves. So guess which wins? The calves win. Your thighs are going to get smushed by the calves. Because we're at this angle, we're going to see a little bit more of a curved shape, and the pants are going to get hidden even more. And we can do a little nice little shadow right here and bring in some of those wrinkles for the pants in order to communicate, wowzer, she's got that angle going on for her. So let me clean up my lines, and you're going to see she's got way more of that nice tilt, and she feels like she's doing that whole like sexy vibe. This one is sexy, but is very realistic. So if you want to be super dramatic like this one, this pops out that butt a little bit more. Just tuck it in a little bit so she doesn't look way too long. And when the calf wins, you're gonna notice that the thigh becomes like this S shape right here, and it's gonna follow kind of the shape of the calves. Then for the hand, what you can do, find where the wrist ends first and cap off the hand first. Don't think about the hands. The hands are gonna make you super duper confused. Yeah, I think references are great, but if you rely on them too much, you lose a lot of the character and personality of drawing. So if you want to make it feel more expressive, you want to learn a little bit, study a little bit how animators do things. They're really great at learning how to stretch proportions, how to exaggerate motion, exaggerate anatomy in order to make it feel more expressive. If anything, you could take a look at how like SpongeBob does things. Because there's no way a sponge would actually look like that, but the way that they're able to capture all the emotions of a person in a sponge is something to kind of applaud at. Okay, so the hand, we're going to draw your triangle shape first for the palms and the knuckles. Stop right there where the knuckle is. Figure out if it's the right angle. Lined up, lined up. Then we're going to group up our fingers. This is the one finger that's not part of the group. See that? Then we start separating fingers, and you should only need to be separating 3 things. And you can keep it simple. If your goal is to just, you know, study the pose, then don't worry about the hands. Just do it as messy as you can. Let me hide the hair real quick so I can fix up this hand right here. No matter what you might think, this part of your arm, your forearm, will always smoothly connect to your hand. There's not going to be some kind of random dip, okay? Especially at this angle. When you're bending your wrist, you're already losing a lot of this space right here, so this has to extend and push outwards in order to compensate. So you're not going to randomly have this kind of dip that you usually have when your hand is normally straight. This is a wrist / thumb bone that is aligned with the direction of your hand. Okay, so when it is bending, you're not going to see that bone sticking out. It's always going to line up with the arm. So for here, don't have it stick out. Same for this one. Start here first, okay? And then she has slight bit more bone. Then you can bring it in very slightly. Do you see how it barely pops out? It's still very much in line with the hand, right? And because her back is so tilted back, I'm gonna make sure we bend her neck backwards in order to line up the spine, and so she doesn't look like she's just randomly gonna die. This shoulder is going to overlap because it's in front of everything. Let's throw in her face real quick. I would say for this case, let's not worry about the hands, so we'll just draw a general shape for the hands. Don't worry about the fingers and everything, okay? Okay, so I made the ears bigger because it's just way too small for her head. And let us draw some guide marks so we know where to put the face. So her eyes should sit there. Her eyes should line up with that edge of that ear. Power's got short eyebrows. They suffer in lack of eyebrow syndrome, just like Toji. They all don't have eyebrows. It makes me so sad. This right here, you can create like this U shape for the shading and then shade it out. That way you get that nice contrast between the neck and the jaw. I don't know what style you're planning to do, but it's up to you depending on how big you want to make the eyes. If you make it bigger, it looks more anime. If you make it smaller, it looks more realistic. some shit like that. Alright, we'll just say that's the face for now. You can play around with the expression when you have the time. For if you want to make her feel like she's super cheery, sometimes with expressions or like anime expressions, they kind of exaggerate the height of the mouth. Show some teeth. Okay. If she's smiling with her teeth open, that also means she's grinning so much that her eyes are gonna get smaller. And you'll want to make the mouth round up top. That way you can see her fangs. Now if you really make it like a super huge smile, okay, let me just cut this out real quick. This is like a small smile. If you make it super duper huge, hide that. I know with some manga, they do super huge smiles like this, and you'll notice it basically becomes like an O. That's because when you smile really huge like this, you're basically trying to expose everything in your mouth to everyone. So essentially, you could do like a cheeky smile. Where it's not that open, or you could do a bigger smile like this, which is like a full-on grin versus cheeky smile. It's up to you. You figure out how you want the expression, but just generally. We'll do something like that, okay? Alright, so for the hair, let's do her hair real quick. Everything starts from up top here, so even her bangs, up top. Up top, so her chunk of bangs actually starts from here. Okay, so when you're drawing it, everything should start from there. Same for her middle classic singular strand of hair that goes right through her face. Then we group up everything else, so we have two sides. We have one chunk of bangs and the other chunk right here. So when we draw it, we're just going to draw it according to that chunk separation. Everything that sticks out is just a bonus tip to make things look more natural. And her hair is going to hide behind her hand because it's easier for us to do it that way. And because when you're putting your hand like this, I usually like to put my hair in front of my hand. I don't put it like this. That would flatten your hair so much. No. It's okay. Hair is fun, but it takes a long time to try to figure out how do you draw hair patterns, right? Because there's so many different types of places where the hair can start. It can start farther back, it could start super far up, but if you have started far up, it's gonna look like you have like a 3 head. So that's why I typically try to say most of the time your hair is gonna start from middle of the head. Where'd my music go? That way you feel like you have enough space for the bangs and everything. And so now that we have the hair in front of the hand, it can drape over the shoulder a little bit because her hair's that long, right? And you'll see super messy hair, so we're gonna try to recreate that by giving her a couple of strands here and there. But general direction of the hair is gonna swoop backwards. So this right here is a strand of hair that comes from this top part that falls over on her shoulder. And I'm just shading so you get an idea of where is the bottom of the hair. So that is all the bottom of the hair. Then you can have it swoop down here. Only thing I have to note is that it's too stiff here. You need to do some overlapping layers of the hair. And then when you shade it, you can go She has light hair, so I don't think you would shave too much. You're just gonna shade a little bit where you have tension points. So right here. And when you're shading, make sure you're using different lengths of lines, so that way it looks more natural. I'm trying my best to make her hair taper as thin as possible so her hair doesn't look too fat and too thick. And that's basically where I would end with the hair shading. You don't have to do too much. See how I just did like a little bit, mostly to define like the shape of the head a little bit. Then for the horns, think about if you had a headband on her head, right? Gonna wrap around like this, then her horns stick straight up on those headband. So when you draw the horns, we draw it based on where that headband would be, and then you just have it overlap by the hair. And I would, in this case, color the whole thing black because it is such a dark value, and just bring back a little bit of that highlight. And voila, you got yourself some horns. Last things you would just want to do is finish up the shading, which I did not do for you. You can have like a little bit of shading here. But don't go too ham with this because you already have like some shading in the hair. If you really want to differentiate it, then you're gonna have to make this darker so you don't get confused. Let's talk real quick about the ruffles. You love it. We're gonna talk about clothes. So for the ruffles, I know you worked really hard on it, but when you draw ruffles, regardless of what angle they are going to be S shapes like this. Now the only difference is when you are in an angle, you get more overlaps of those ruffles. So let's just start with the S shape, and as you get closer and closer to the overlap section, you're gonna get tighter and tighter curls, and that's when you're gonna start overlapping stuff. And again, same thing for this back part, we have overlap. Ruffles can be really fast to do, but you just have to make sure that you're doing the right type of S-shaped curls for the ruffle. So for overlaps, you have tighter S shapes closer together, whereas for farther parts or like the straight on angle, you have less of a tight S shape. And for ruffles, only time you have a line is if you have an extreme ruffle like this. If it's gradual like this, you don't really have that line. And then you can take your time to add a little bit of shadows here and there, depending on how the direction of the ruffle is. And with the shadow, there we go, we got ourselves the direction of the ruffle. So if it's showing a little bit more this side, more shadow here, more of this side, more shadow there. Okay, so that's it for the critique. Hopefully that was helpful in terms of how to approach this one. There's a lot more shadows you could do. You could do, I don't know, some shadow right here. You could do some shading like this. Some really bad crosshatch shading, of course. You can shade a little bit of her jeans to kind of create contrast between the body and the clothing. Like this. Okay, this is really horrible shading, but I'm just doing it really quickly so you can get an idea of how the contrast looks. So that would help you bring a little bit more contrast against the rest of the body, because the body, we're going to keep it as the paper color, right? And well, how else are you going to create contrast? How are you going to create interest if everything's the same color, right? Okay, so before, after, we have a little bit more sexy pose. This one was fine, very realistic, but we get more of that sexy S-shaped spine with that pushing back the butt a little bit, showing a little bit more of that spine. And again, don't focus too much about the hands if your focus is not the hands. Okay, so that's it good for this critique. I will save all these PSDs and then upload them to a drive and share them on the Discord so you can peruse them at your own leisure. I will get started on recording the color theory tutorial. I'll try to keep it to super basics, and we'll just go through like a couple different examples and play around with one single drawing and trying out different color palettes and seeing which ones work and why they don't work. Okay? Alright, thank you for hanging out with me, you guys. Bye bye. Bye bye.